Well, the reason they try is exactly the subject and everything that on program to focus on surrounds and is about and orbits around this single subject is that this message needs to be relayed to man, and after that is done, the messenger can be satisfied with the message dispersal. If it permeates and man groks it and he begins to implement it, then that's a different story. If he groks it and there's nothing else, that's another story. But the only one that suffices to satisfy this ambition for global transformation or something akin to that renaissance or reconsideration is it gets to him. He hears it. If he lives for a while, so to really to quantify it into his lifetime, the period that's the time frame that's required for him to comprehend or encounter and acknowledge the the idea is minuscule. It wouldn't take much time. It can happen on one's lunch break or when they are in their leisure time. It doesn't take long, and it's simply that he doesn't live here. He has nothing to do with this place. He's much of a guest and a visitor. If he's trying to find the proper metaphor of himself, he's not the homeowner. If he's trying to place himself in the territory. So if he considers himself that, and he should, because that is how the circumstance presents his fate, he it's a secondary acknowledgement that then it opens up the ability to act. It opens up the what a sentence. How would that be interpreted by the listener? But it open when it says it opens up his ability to act. It's like you have the freedom to become creative. You have the freedom to decide how to play your character, decide how to choose your character, decide what or why or how, decide anything, any of the questions. You are open to act and to answer. So in training your character or updating your character or choosing how your character should be, it's you stepping back from the ego or the ego of the personified nurture self in its culture, in its milieu, and then re-examining and altering it, given the data that the witness carries. And what data does the witness carry other than they're capable, it's available that it can retweak their actions or their action hub or where the actions are sourced from or how to think about it. But this thinking about it is perhaps a dumbing procedure. The character of the character of the actor or the actor's character, depending which direction one is entering the thought, is your specification, and it's a specification of the rest of the things around. It's the specification of how the constraints of the earth, the karmic constraints of the earth, are layered. So in this way, you can match each input from the world appropriately. And when he does this, he causes luck or karma. He causes things are going well, but things are designed to. They're designed to go away and not go away in the abandoning or the leaving or the aggression, but they're designed to go away, just away, meaning that he sees the measure of the ways that things carry on, and they carry on by cases of occasions. This is Whitehead now of actual occasions, but thinking about it as a process philosopher and also introducing Hegel into the picture. The process is dialectical. Before it moves to a higher state, before it moves to the next state, and it's higher because it's better. It's technically so because it includes what the previous stage has plus something else. And the world always reserve an additive. It continuously reserve an additive. That's what fuels its creativity and its coalescence. So including Hegel into the frame, Hegel brings out the synthesis dialectic. It's what these guys are doing. They're providing synthesis for us who are active thinkers, because we are the builders of steps, and we are the designers of steps or layering. Each prior generation, the shoulder of the giants that we stand on, simply regardless if you are a role model of it, or you're a role model of this giant tree or you're not. You simply stand on the giants of others. You definitely stand on the giants of your progenitors. And meaning in this case that the synthesis, the it and the synthesis being a product of the thesis and the antithesis. These two process, these two counterparts, these counterparts emerge, collapse, rather react. In the emergent property of the reaction is the synthesis. Synthesis is crucial to the evolution in this ball game, because synthesis is that thought, synthesis is that epiphany that gets wants to kick out of the rigid preceding pattern, or the rigid past. For there to be any change, the change comes out as a synthesis, and including not only Hegel, including Whitehead in here in the process philosophy, and after current occasions, there is the concurrency of man's continual. There's the concurrency of man's continual eventing. That sentence is, as there is the presence, the reality of man's constant repeating, inventing is what it means, that the giving of the eye necessarily begins our event, and man is current always in an event. The eye might change locations, so the eye might move to a different geographical location, or it might be entertaining a different procedural commitment, but it's always the I, and I it's constant in this variation over change, geographical and participatory and procedural and perspectile and perspective. In all these different cases where he's applying his knowledge, hoping to hit the mark, and that's the correct application of his synthesis, as you have it, or as his synthesis would turn out to be a thesis, or turn out to be an antithesis. In other words, it will be a product of a future resolution, and this future resolution constantly is what man is after. So this is the message that goes across in halves. Of course, there are other layers to it. It goes it goes further. And what is after to not hoping to compartmentalize it, in the hope that it becomes more compact. Compartmentalization, in its fractionation, it's actually just a technique, just a technique you will apply to any household problem, to troubleshoot a problem, where you open it up so it be sterilized, it be aired. But this thought, for some reason, when it's applied to the thinking, what it does is just more thinking stuff. It just acts more like thought and abstract work than it does with the realistic household chores one might be applied to. But nevertheless, it's the same. It stems from the same source, though its application changes in its application differs in its domain. When it's applied to the thought, it's simply to sparse it out. It's hoping to compartmentalize, but also in ironic sense, to by airing it out, it's hoping to lessen it, to hmm, to rearrange it. And I mean, the listener perhaps have already reached, by their association, have probably reached the word that was being grasped for. The word was organization. Is simply just to organize it better, and this is rearranging the furniture in the recipient's mind, hoping that by re-explaining this thing, what is this thing about, what is it after, how can truly be used as a statement there, how can truly be used as a predicate. How can that sentence be based on this change? It's that when man groks it, and he can change his character, and but given that the landscape is not a part, does not partake in the war, he changes the character, and everything else falls into place, meaning that he reinvents. And this is reinvent with an E now. The I, as is relocating from one actual occasion to another. The I being transformed, reinvents, and alters and augments these different cases. And that's what you're after. It's after a different type of history. To really write this down and get into the nuts and bolts issue, to weld it into its housing and let this matter be shut. It's the difference between long-term potential and long-term degradation. You're hoping to kill off. You're hoping to prune certain patterns of thought, certain traces, certain directions, certain lines of thinking that are just they're counterproductive to man's stance and to man's status. They're counterproductive to man's status as a higher animal. And as this message gets across, as it gets broadcast and it gets transmitted, and fellows and individuals begin to sit and ponder and reflect, and they become to place their life in parentheses and hoping that it causes a psychedelic experience inside of their mind, self-induced, let it be said, non-pharmacological, self-induced experience. And it's what it translates to by saying that it's an expansion of consciousness. That's what's after. That's the commodity that all the greats have. That's the commodity that the wise ones have. It's expanded. And that's how the ball game is played. But we happen to get this on our first localized and standardized format, and also then that it becomes publicized, that it becomes broadcast, and it's ubiquitous. That man, you can find the well controlled and the level headed commonly. You can find them easily. You can find them readily. They are nearby and they're far off, meaning that it's surrounding to its to the troposphere, to the limits of the troposphere or to the exosphere. There's only this type of thing, and what this means is trying to weed out those that necessarily needs and those is not speaking of the it's not referring to the animal themselves. It's referring to those. Those are the lines of thinking. These are bundles of fibers. Imagine them as bundles of fibers. They are the weeds and are the weeds against the valuables, and you're hoping to prune them so that after this pruning process, it can be regrafted, and then that he's rejoined because he's waiting to be rejoined. The rest of the system is in equilibrium. Life is a reverse against entropy. That is so. It's a reverse against entropy as a matter of design, but also this reverse against entropy, it pulls him. It's a force that pulls him to base. So this transformation of both base metals into gold, it's akin, it's tantamount, in truth, to reuse. And in most of these cases, is what it said. These guys are providing sentences, and what the active force is doing, it's translating it from paradigmatic substitution to reframe what they're actually getting at. What is the meat of the matter? Because they're not along of the way to go to this continual updating process. It's a system of truth. I mean, it jostles from here to there, and the goal is to hope. The goal is not to hope, sorry, but that sentence can mean also to be to apply humidity. But the goal is not to hope, but the goal is simply to have this macrocosm be refurnished and bring down and have the macrocosm here and bring down what is possible. And speaking of bringing heaven to earth or turning base metals into gold, so gold dwells within heaven, man becomes God because God was once man, or somewhere in his bloodline he's mixed in, he's mixed bred, he's interbred with this he's interbred with the genetic sequencing, the genetic arrangement, this hereditary information, this nucleotide sequence with the phosphorus sugar backbone. In that line, it can be translated in his endoplasmic reticulum. He can be synthesized. He can be synthesized to the. His phenotype already represents, it's like the environment where the hardware does not do much of the work. Rewiring the software is where the work is. So now link this back to his genetic sequencing somewhere within there, but thinking about it not of that of the individual, but think about it as that of the community, the species community at large. Somewhere within that gathering, it's Waldo. He's trying to find Waldo, and after he finds Waldo, he isolates and points on Waldo, then he never leaves Waldo again. This is how nature does it. Nature just applies random combination, and eventually when it finds the key that does the unlocking, and this is a proper situation adaptation to one's environment, what nature does is it conserves it. It conserves it and it replicates and duplicates it, and it wants that. It wants the keys that can unlock an adaptation, proper fittedness to the environment, and that's what it is to be a true actualized individual. Is better able to connect and be in sync with the rest of the surrounding. being in sync with the rest of the surrounding. That makes a good time. If one is not in line, they just cause for a bad time. And this is what it's after. This is the message, and to get this to a standardized, politically recognized status. I mean, he turns land into this thing, get them and arrange them and educate them in this, and see how they live. I mean, that's an experiment to marvel at. You get to see man read at the pinnacle, at his stent. What? He's exploiting the room for improvement, and he's transforming it. So this is the message too, and much more work will be done on it until it gains critical mass. I mean, after all, that's the raison d'etre. So share it and communicate it in most cases. This is the dialectic. It's hoping for a dialectic in that way be evaluated, and then in one's own soliloquy, in one's own household dialogues. At the dinner table, they're talking and speaking, and they're acting out in this authentically actualized manner. It's afterwards, man. It's trying to lower the presence and the statistic of low consciousness activity. When man gets this, he transforms his context. The context is riddled with the vibe of the past, but it's trying to rethink and air out the vibe, and you can check it when you evaluate the idea in the privacy of your own mental theater.